Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Clark in the Center for Weight Loss Success. And tonight on Losing Weight USA, we're going to talk a little bit about advanced fitness. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about just kind of the basic fitness. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit of how do you kind of take some of these steps to get up to get in a better fitness level, kind of going up a little bit higher here, turning up the intensity. All right, here's the official welcome. Welcome, Lose Weight USA. This is answers to your weight loss questions in real time, the latest updates, as well as some of the weight loss research, as well as a little bit of expert advice. That would be me. It does give you direct access not only to me, but you should be receiving the health tips and recipes via the membership portal. Each webinar is going to last about 30 minutes or so. And if you have questions, type them in during the presentation. We'll get to them at the end as time permits, and typically we'll make time permit. If you think of something once we're all done, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. The email is success@cfws.com. Phone number 757-873-1880. All right, let me get this flipped on over. About some advanced fitness. So an exercise plan, when you start working on kind of an exercise plan, you really want to incorporate kind of the three modalities of flexibility and balance, strength training, which is often referred to as resistance training, weight training, whatever one wants to call it, and then cardiovascular training. Cardiovascular is anything that gets your heart rate up. So you want to incorporate these three things. We often think, cardiovascular, that's the first thing we typically turn to. It's kind of walking, jogging, swimming, biking, anything that gets your heart rate up a little bit. Strength training is often referred to as resistance training, weight training. So it's anything we do against resistance, and you don't need weights to do weight training. Body weight works great. Push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, crunches, squats, that's all weight training. But then we shouldn't forget about flexibility and balance. As we get older, we get less flexible. As we get older, we tend to get less balance. And we can train, we can actually improve these things or keep them at a certain level. So don't ignore or forget these things. So flexibility, very important. Balance, also very important. Yoga is a great exercise that kind of incorporates a lot of these same things, the flexibility, but also the balance, but there is some strength training. And yoga may actually be getting your heart rate up there too. So tonight, again, we're talking about advanced fitness, and we're also going to talk about including not just aerobic exercise, but actually anaerobic exercise. Anaerobic exercise means we're using up all of our oxygen stores, and therefore then we're working anaerobically as opposed to aerobically, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But when we start working towards anaerobic exercises, this is some of where the best fitness gains occur. All right, now there's lots of different benefits of exercise. We talked about this back in when we talked about basic exercise, but no matter what, physically demanding exercise plan is going to provide both psychological and emotional benefits, also contributing to your overall well-being. So it's not just the physical side of the whole thing. There's a lot of psychological and emotional benefits to this as well. But from a medical standpoint, physical standpoint, we can reduce blood pressure, we can reduce cholesterol, reduce body fat, you can improve depression and anxiety, you can improve insulin sensitivity. Now, these are very real things that can improve your overall health. It also will increase HDL. HDL is the good cholesterol, so we want that high as possible. It protects you from heart disease. It also helps increase strength and increases work capacity. We can do more for a longer period of time. It improves heart or cardiac function. Exercise, especially the weight training side, protects against osteoporosis, and exercise just by itself helps prevent certain cancers. All right. The bottom line is this, is that exercise, their benefits are so wide and varied, it's going to improve the overall quality of your life. So everyone should be exercising, not just those in a weight loss plan. But an exercise really is it's really a health benefit. It's really kind of, preserving health. It's a healthy thing to do. It's a rare person that can actually exercise themselves to weight loss. Yes, we encourage, exercise during weight loss, but it's really to preserve lean body mass, keep your metabolism higher. That's what you really want to do during a weight loss plan, so that you're not losing lean body mass. But just exercise all by itself, even without any weight loss plan, is very important health benefit. Okay? Again, it's a rare person that actually can exercise themselves to weight loss. Well, sometimes people will come into the office and they'll tell me, gee, I'd lose more weight if I were exercising. Well, that may or may not be true, because the key to weight loss is still diet, what we're eating. Exercise, again, helps preserve lean body mass, which keeps metabolism higher. It's an extremely healthy thing to do and can improve your overall health tremendously. So everybody ought to be doing it. So what are the basic components? A quick review then. You want to mix up kind of cardiovascular and resistance training, as well as the flexibility balance exercises. So when you are exercising, we encourage people to use what's called the FIT principle. FIT is it stands for frequency, intensity, time or duration, and type. Okay. Frequency is how often you're going to do this, whatever it is you're doing. How often are you going to do it? Intensity is how hard are you going to do it? Is it some days different? And hopefully, yeah, it should be. Some days are different than other days. Some days really hard, other days, well, not so hard. Okay. Then time and duration is how long are you actually going to do the exercise? And that should vary too. For some days, it may be a better thing to exercise over an extended period of time, or other days where you want to kind of shorten that time frame up and really bump up the intensity. You can get a great workout in 20 minutes. You do not need to have an hour and a half at the gym. You just don't need to. You can get a great workout at home, 20 minutes. Go to our YouTube site or Facebook site. I've got a number of videos on there. And kind of, here are some good exercise plans. 20 minutes, you're done. Okay. And then the type. What is the actual exercise you're doing? Jogging, swimming, biking, weight training, whatever it is. Okay. It can be anything. Okay. So what are you doing? The FIT principle: frequency, intensity, time, how long it's going to be done, and then the type. What are you actually doing? You do want to make sure you warm up prior and cool down and stretch after. Okay. Now, some people kind of do some stretching beforehand too, but it's really important to stretch afterwards. Now, if you're truly not stretching, and I'm not a proponent that everybody has to do a lot of stretching before they work out, but they do need to warm up. You do need to warm up, get those muscles loose, kind of, you get the blood flowing in there. That gives you the least chance of injuring yourself. And so make sure you warm up and cool down and stretch after. Hydrate, push the water. We encourage everybody to push water all day, but especially around exercise. And then finally, use correct form. This is where people get injured, using incorrect form. So you want to use correct form. If there's any question about correct form, please ask. We have trainers here, we have lots of trainers with lots of experience, and we encourage people, ask. They will help you. Come to the classes, the exercise classes. They will help you use correct form, so that you don't want to be injuring yourself. And if you do have an injury, sometimes how to work around an injury. If you have a disability, sometimes working around that disability. That doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise. What you should be doing is that you may have to change up what you actually need to do in order to get the similar benefit then. All right, so again, kind of going into, or kind of sneaking into here now, the advanced fitness. So principles of fitness, what we were trying to do then, if you're trying to get in, up your fitness levels, what do you want to do? You want to work on progression, meaning that, okay, we're going to change up that frequency, intensity of time, the fit part of all this. And you want to start getting more frequent, more intense, maybe longer time. So you want to see progression of what you can do. Regularity, exercising, once a month is good, but it's probably not going to get you where you want to be in a fitness routine. You're trying to advance your fitness. So kind of regularity is doing this, in set number of days a week. Ideally, it should be at least 3 balanced workouts per week. Okay. I think you can get in pretty decent shape, 3 balanced workouts a week. Now, even better if you can do more than that. Again, you don't want to injure yourself, but still, if you can get 4 or 5, even 6, I think it's a good idea to take a day off every week, rest and recover type of thing. It doesn't mean do nothing when I say take a day off every week. Going for walks, stretching, you may want to do that, some different things that you wouldn't normally do that are fairly low intensity. And specificity, what I mean by that is that you need to get the right exercise for you, meaning you need to enjoy I realize that people don't always enjoy exercise, especially while it's ongoing. Often we enjoy it afterwards. Hey, we're done. That's great. But you do want to if you can pick out something you truly enjoy, it's going to make it so much easier. Now, sometimes that we have to develop that enjoyment, because when we're just getting into an exercise plan, nothing is really that enjoyable, but it'd be nice if it could be. But if you can find something you truly enjoy, that is the greatest way to go. And then finally, overload, meaning we're going to increase the difficulty over time. Your body adjusts to whatever exercise plan we're doing. So we want to start working on that overload, meaning that we're kind of overloading the muscles. Now, you've got to do that slowly. You need to work up to that thing. But eventually, that's what we're trying to do, is we want to see improvement. We want to see strength gains. Okay? We want to see these improvement in all those different areas, from the flexibility, balance, lean body mass, actually gaining some of that. And that's, if we can do that, the best way to do that is kind of increase your difficulty. Right. So progression, regularity, specificity, the right exercises, and then kind of slowly working on an overload. We're going to work this hard, work these muscles harder. All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about kind of what I alluded to right at the very beginning, is kind of aerobic versus anaerobic exercise. Okay, aerobic exercise. People have they all have heard that term, aerobic exercise. We're going to go do aerobics. What does that mean? Typically, aerobics means we're doing something in a rhythmic fashion. But what aerobic really means is that we're consuming the oxygen and we're utilizing it in an efficient way, so that we're never running out of oxygen. Okay. So when we talk about oxygen consumption, okay, and basically if we're breathing in and out, we are utilizing oxygen. Our entire body, we breathe it in and out of our lungs, but the oxygen travels through our bloodstream and subsequently is utilized by all the tissues. So the tissues that are utilizing this oxygen, so we are consuming oxygen continuously. And oxygen consumption really falls into 3 categories. The first is aerobic. The second is anaerobic, or it can be a combination of the two. And that's typically often many of the exercises fall into the combination of the two. We're utilizing both. Aerobic, again, means with oxygen. Anaerobic is the opposite then. It means without oxygen. Now, when I say with oxygen, what it refers to, it refers to the use of oxygen in our metabolic or energy-producing processes or energy-producing pathways. So any activity that increases our heart rate and uses oxygen at all is an aerobic exercise. Okay, so it typically tends to be continuous, rhythmic, and prolonged. So it could be riding your bike, could be skating, could be jogging, could be swimming. Typically the aerobic classes usually are doing something that's getting your heart rate up. But they typically are kind of a rhythm, maybe a dancing type of move, maybe whatever it is, it typically is getting your heart rate up. But it's not getting it up so high that we're actually unable to keep up with our breathing. So we need to be able to keep up with the breathing, meaning that we're not gasping for air. So we're breathing, we may start breathing harder, but we can keep up with what we're doing. And so your body's utilizing that oxygen that we're breathing in and out, and subsequently then taking that oxygen to all our tissues, it's utilizing it, and then we're going to get rid of the waste products then too. So what aerobic means, we're utilizing with oxygen. We can keep up with our breathing. Anaerobic means without oxygen. And what that really means is that we're working so intensely. The activity is so high, so intense that the muscles literally run out of oxygen. That the bloodstream in us breathing cannot provide enough oxygen for those muscles to utilize continuously. Therefore, what it means is that oxygen demand exceeds the supply. And when oxygen demand exceeds the supply, well, basically you're not getting enough oxygen to the tissues. And therefore, in order for the tissues to continue to work, they have to rely on other sources of energy. So it relies on energy sources that are stored in the muscles, not dependent on the oxygen arriving there. So the energy stored in the muscles, typically it's glycogen. That's how we store in our muscles. And we have a pathway that can utilize glycogen without oxygen and subsequently then produce energy. So we can actually utilize it, but we can only do it for a short period of time because it's a very inefficient use of energy. But if we can do that, it actually provides significant fitness gains to us. And our body gets used to working under stressful situation. And if we can get our body used to using stressful situations, then the muscles keep activating, well, then that's how we improve our fitness. So actually most exercises fall somewhere in between. Now, a good example of kind of anaerobic would be the all-out sprint. Even the 100-yard dash, the 100-meter dash, okay, the Olympic sprinters. We as humans cannot sprint much longer than a few seconds. So literally a 100-meter dash exceeds how long someone could actually sprint. There might be some world-class athletes that truly could hold their breath and sprint 100 yards. But most of us can't, okay? And most world-class athletes probably can't either. So what we're saying there is we actually are going to outrun our oxygen supply. And so even sprinters all out truly aren't sprinting all out except for a very short period of time in there. They're actually coasting for a short period of time in there. So even that you would think of it, gee, it's an all-out sprint, 100-meter dash. Yes, it is, but since even the world's greatest athletes will actually coast because we can't do that for an extended period of time. So it's only a very short burst. So it's going to be all-out activity, very short burst. And so it's that all-out sprint. Now, it could be not necessarily the all-out sprint. It could be weight training is working toward that absolute muscle fatigue. So that, gee, I cannot do that last rep. I can't actually do it because the muscles are actually outstripping the oxygen supply, and subsequently then that's where we start getting our fitness gains again. So when we think about it, really the point of exercise is to improve your ability to consume, transport, and utilize oxygen in all of the thousands of biochemical equations that go on continuously in your body. So we want to improve how efficiently we can use oxygen. So that's really the point. If we improve that, then typically our tissues are healthier. So that's really the point of exercise. And improving your ability to consume, transport, utilize oxygen in all of its biochemical equations. Now, how do we actually then look at intensity then? So we talked about kind of aerobic is kind of continuous, kind of an anaerobic is the absolute all-out sprint, which we can't do for very long. So we have to do things in between and sometimes switch back and forth. Now, so how do we actually figure this out? Well, heart rate intensity or heart rate itself is a good way to estimate exercise intensity using your heart rate then. That's why if you've listened to my Facebook type of things and my quick little videos there, I talked about, hey, what's the most important piece of exercise equipment you can own? And it's a heart rate monitor right there. So Heart rate is a great way to measure exercise intensity. The most common formula of kind of figuring out your maximum heart rate, okay? Your maximum heart rate is about 220 minus your age. So if you're 40 years old, 220 minus your age, 220 minus 40 is 180. So in theory, your maximum heart rate is around 180. Now, just realize that when we say your maximum heart rate for a 40-year-old is about 180, there is about a 10% leeway there. Some people, 10% of 180 is 18. Okay, so there's about 18 beat leeway there on either side, so that you may, for some people, they can't quite get there. Other people, hey, I can shoot up past my quote maximum heart rate and I do just fine. Maybe not fine, but they could actually kind of go up higher than that, and they're able to do that. So, but a good estimate of your maximum heart rate, again, is 220 minus your age. For a 20-year-old, then it's 200. For a 50-year-old, it's 170. Okay. Now, another way of looking at it is just kind of ranking it, kind of what's your perceived exertion scale. So the RPEs, your rate of perceived exertion. So this is something you're kind of, I'm estimating it, but there are guidelines. One is basically doing nothing, kind of hanging out in your easy boy, your lazy boy, rather than watching TV, maybe working the remote. So it's basically doing nothing. That's what 1 is. And 10 is the all-out sprint. 5 then is kind of the very fast walk or slow jog. So then you can kind of rate in between what is my perceived exertion, and kind of slowly want to be able to go up to that all-out once in a while. Now, we often hear about training in heart rate zones, and it's often expressed in percentage of your maximum heart rate. So to keep the math easy, I'm going to talk about a 20-year-old. Okay, and I realize most of us aren't 20 years old, but we can do the math pretty easy there, because maximum heart rate, 220 minus your age, that means in theory, your maximum heart rate is 200, all right? So we look at heart rate zones then. We express it as a percentage of maximum heart rate. So a warm-up zone would be 50 to 60%. Okay, so if we're talking about the 20-year-old, 50 to 60% is then 100 to 120, somewhere in there. And it's often then that perceived exertion of 2 to 3. Okay? That's kind of the warm-up. We're just getting the blood flowing a little bit. Fitness zone is often referred to as 60 to 70% of max. So from that 20-year-old example, 60 to 70%, we're talking about 120 to 140 beats per minute. And that's that 3 to 4 perceived exertion. Aerobic zone, okay, that's that 70 to 80%. So in that 20-year-old, we're talking 140 to 160, right? And that's that higher perceived exertion than 5 or 6. Anaerobic zone, again, this is where we start kind of exceeding the oxygen supply. Your heart rate's up high enough, the blood flow is going great, but we can't actually get enough oxygen to the tissues. So the tissues are somewhat oxygen deprived, and therefore now need to begin to start using that anaerobic metabolism, which again is less efficient. This is where we build up lactic acid. So when you hear people talking about lactic, I should have mentioned this earlier, you talk about build up lactic acid. That lactic acid is a byproduct. It's kind of the waste product of anaerobic metabolism. So that we don't have enough oxygen, an anaerobic metabolism, get a buildup of lactic acid. It kind of changes the pH, and eventually the muscles are completely worn out. And then as we recover, you breathe now, we stop and recover, then you're going to get rid of that. The blood flow continues. You're going to get rid of the lactic acid, then you'll get rid of it and strip it out of your body. So there's nothing bad about that. There's just a limit to how long you can do that. But anaerobic zone, again, now we're getting into that 80 to 90%. So in that example, again, we're talking about that 160 to 180 beats per minute. Okay? And this, we're starting getting the perceived exercise or perceived exertion in that 78 range. This is the range that if you can train in this kind of that anaerobic, where we're basically flirting right on the edge of being able not to get enough oxygen to our muscles. So this is where we're breathing really hard. And if someone can train at this level just for a short period of time, 15 to 20 minutes, you get a tremendous cardiovascular benefit there. You don't need to be going miles and miles. You don't have to be going 40 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour long. It's like, no, if you can get up into this anaerobic zone, and sometimes when we talk about high intensity interval training, we're just kind of going up or into that anaerobic zone, then backing off, going up, backing off, going up, backing off. And if you train at that level, though, this is where we get the most cardiovascular benefit. Again, the maximum effort is to get 90 to 100% of your maximum heart rate. So that's that all-out sprint, which we can only do for a few seconds. You can only truly do an all-out sprint for a very short period of time. Okay? We have to coast. If we're doing something longer than about 20 seconds or so, you're going to have to coast because we cannot keep up with that. And so that's the maximum effort, though. But it's driving that heart rate up. So in that example, could close to be that 200 beats per minute in that 20-year-old. Right? Now, for the rest of us, 120, we're talking about for the 50-year-old, then we have to start doing some math in that, okay, for if you're 50 years old, then you're in theoretical maximum heart rate is about 170. So 220 minus 50, 170. And then you have to kind of do some math there to kind of figure those things out. All right, now I'm going to shift gears again a little bit because I want to talk about what's called the fallacy of the fat burning zone. And I need to kind of move this along because I have a meeting I'm supposed to be at shortly. But the fallacy of fat burning zone. We often think, or you're often told, to train at a certain level of heart rate, 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. And when you're doing that, that's the, quote, fat burning zone. Now, why do we say that? Well, energy that we utilize during exercise has to come from the breakdown of either carbohydrate or fat. That's where that energy has to come from. So in that 60 to 70% maximum heart rate, most of that energy then is coming from fat being broken down. The issue there is that you're actually not burning that many calories in that 60 to 70% of maximum heart rate. So yes, you're in, quote, the fat burning zone, but you'll actually get a much bigger benefit if you actually go up to a higher percentage of maximum heart rate. Now, less of the percentage of energy we burn as fat, but you're going to be burning so many more calories that you'll still be burning more fat, more calories. And the total calorie burn then is going to be much, much higher. So just because the percentage of fat that's coming from the energy that's coming from fat, it doesn't really matter because that'll still stay high. You'll just start burning a lot more calories because you'll burn more carbohydrate then, which is actually a good thing because then you can replenish carbohydrate as well. If you don't burn the carbohydrate, you can't actually replenish it either. Aerobic training, I'm going to kind of move through this fairly quickly. Continuous training just means we're doing something at a pace that's it's jogging. It's riding your bike at a continuous pace. It's doing something in a continuous swimming at a continuous pace. 60 to 80% of maximum heart rate for about 20 minutes or so. High intensity continuous training is you're bumping that up. So you're taking it up to that next level. Again, if you can train in this level, some of the greatest fitness gains, a great way to improve endurance. It's just not for the beginner. You have to work up to that. Long, slow distance is basically doing an extended workout, very slow. It's kind of that talking speed. It's out there doing kind of that, the brisk walk for an extended period of time. There's something that the Swedes call fartlek, and this means speed play, and it means speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. So you're changing speed and changing intensity then, but that's what that means. High intensity interval training, I really encourage people as they get more fit is to work towards this because you get some of the greatest fitness gains here because you're going to drive your heart rate up way into that zone that I was talking about. And so then let it back down. It's getting a lot of publicity lately. It can improve physical performance in a fairly short training session, 20 minutes, you're done. Very physically demanding. So again, it is not for beginners, but it alternates kind of the high intensity work 80 to 90 to close to 100% max heart rate with rest and recovery periods down into that 50 to 60%. But you're not letting it completely recover. You're just kind of backing off to kind of recover enough to go back up into that high area. And some studies actually show continued increased basal metabolism after that for a full 24 hours. So if you can do high intensity interval training, it's a great way to bump your metabolism up for the next 24 hours, burning more calories. And really the greatest results come from doing high intensity interval resistance training, or HIRT, okay, if you want an acronym there. Okay. So high intensity interval resistance training is doing kind of those things where you're doing resistance training and getting your heart rate way up. If any of you are familiar with that Insanity program that Beachbody has, that's one of it's a fairly short thing, but you're doing really high intensity using body weight, but it's resistance and cardiovascular at the same time. But that's what you're incorporating it all in one, and you get some of the greatest fitness gains, greatest increase in metabolism for a long period of time afterwards. All right, again, use that FIT principle, frequency, intensity, type, and time. Once you get kind of used to that, then start changing it up. So revisit these and then change them up, whether you change the frequency, whether you change the intensity, whether you change how long, the different exercises, keep changing it up. A few final thoughts. Yes, I encourage people to have comfortable shoes. You should have good supportive shoes. Replace them as you need to. If you're working out fairly routinely, that should be every 3 to 6 months. Certified trainer is a great resource. We encourage it. Don't ignore that. Don't ignore your exercise as part of your weight loss plan. And just like Nike says, just do it. No excuses. All right. I don't see any questions popping up there. But if you think of things, obviously you know where to find us. Stop by the Center for Weight Loss Success. Get your body comp done. We encourage that. You want to make sure you're keeping that lean body mass. You should be logging into the membership portal, receiving the weight loss tips as well as weekly recipes. Tune in each Tuesday, 6 o'clock for the next webinar. Watch your email for the invite and link. And remember, it's your life. Make it a healthy one. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.